So my name is Carlos Salinas. I'm a recent graduate. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, don't mention that. So we do have this session being live streamed. There are segments of the workshop that we do want to make it more personal, more engaging. And we would like to ask all of you if you would be okay to being recorded, audio recorded, not video recorded. And if you're not okay, that's totally fine. We just stop the recording at that point in the segment of the workshop. But is anyone opposed to being audio recorded?
So your face won't be on it, it's just your voice and whatever you share. And just keep in mind that it might help because people are watching this at home and you'll be able to access this after. So your experiences might help someone else. So it might be a good thing. But is anyone does not want to be recorded? And you don't have to share if you don't want to, but if you might.
Yeah. It's totally a safe space. Like whatever you discuss here, like we're not gonna be like, hey, like that person said that, you know. But we're really trying to gauge with what you know and maybe some of the experiences that you've been through, and we'll share what we've been through as well. But you don't have to at any point discuss anything you don't feel comfortable with, or any hostile environment that you feel.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. So my name is Carlos Salinas. I'm a recent graduate from UCLA. I am undocumented, so I'm in that process. I'm in the DACA application process. So that's where I'm at right now.
Hi, my name is Angelica. I'm a junior transfer with the major in sociology, minor in public policy. I'm also undocumented, and I am documented as well.
So, can I just get a sense of like the attendees that we have here? So mainly high school students, community members, college educators, high school educators.
So raise your hand if you're in high school. Okay, what about community college? Or what about college in general? Other UCs, CSUs, okay. And then, yeah, educators, any educators? Okay. Parents, okay, community members, advocates, awesome. Okay.
I saw a couple of like youngsters, between the youngsters side. Yeah, that's good. So today we'll be talking about embracing the undocumented identity and responding to anti-immigrant sentiment. There is a lot to be covered, but we'll try to cover some of the topics, and we might glance over a couple of them. And I would encourage everyone to definitely approach us after the presentation to ask us more deeper questions, maybe things that weren't clear. Definitely.
So for this first portion, we want you to think about this question. So what do you normally think of when you hear the word undocumented? And if you could just take maybe like 2-3 minutes to just write down some of the things. That could be words, phrases, whatever it is that you think of when you hear the word undocumented. It doesn't mean that you believe it. It's just something that maybe you've heard other people think of or anything like that.
Do we have anyone that doesn't speak English? Just realize that. Or is everyone comfortable with English? Look at that thumbs up.
Should say that in Spanish.
Totally. Who am I, right? ¿Están bien todos hablando inglés o quieren que traduzcamos en español? ¿En español? Ok. So, vamos a tratar de traducir partes más como accesibles para que podamos cubrir todo lo que tenemos en español. So, vamos a estar pensando sobre esta pregunta durante el promedio del taller. So, ¿qué es lo que piensas cuando escuchas la palabra indocumentado? Por favor, si puedes escribir 2 o 3 pensamientos que te vienen a la mente cuando piensas de alguien indocumentado, o qué escuchas o qué miras cuando piensas de alguien indocumentado. Do you have paper? ¿Todos tienen papel? Did everyone write something down? Or you're still thinking?
These thoughts.
You don't have to write a paragraph. Unless you want to. Hello.
Okay, so now maybe if any of you feel comfortable sharing, we want to get like 4 or 5 different things that you want to share, just kind of raise your hand, share them out. Anybody want to share? Yes.
Well, the 15 arrows, the first one is hard worker, determined, and optimistic.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
Undocumented, unafraid, and unapologetic.
That's fine.
Yeah, the most word that comes to my mind and also suffering in my, people around is that undocumented people, they just come to the United States to try to reach the government.
¿Hay alguien más que quisiera compartir sobre qué tipo de cosas piensan cuando piensan en la palabra indocumentado?
Second chance.
Second chance.
Okay, wow, these are all really positive. That's a really good start.
So, given those thoughts that you shared, we want to talk about a little bit about what's been happening, right? Some of the policy, some of the activism that's been around the issue of immigration, and specifically in part of working with undocumented youth, right? So también queremos cubrir un poquito del activismo y las pólizas que están en corriente, pero en este momento que está sucediendo en Estados Unidos está transformando cómo miramos la inmigración, pero también el activismo que está tomando en parte de los estudiantes indocumentados.
Okay, so some of the student movements is AB 540, which passed in 2001. If you're in high school, you should know what it is because you do need to fill it out once you go to anywhere where it's community college, TSU, UC, private. If you are already in college, then make sure that you have filled it out. And so that allows undocumented students to pay in-state tuition, but it is estimated, he'll go over it. But, so the next is Federal Dream Act, which has, the last time it was actually brought up was in 2010, and it didn't pass. This was December 2010 by 4 votes. And since then, there hasn't been anything like that. And then in the 2011 was the California Dream Act, which allowed students to get scholarships and in-state tuition. And then just recently, DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, in 2012, which allows youth to get a work permit and in California a driver's license. But this conference is about thinking about families in general. So we also wanted to include immigration policies that include the whole family. One of them is ERCA, or back in the day it was ERCA in 1986, which granted amnesty to a lot of people. And since then, right now there's a conversation about CIR, Comprehensive Immigration Reform. And there's been a lot of talk about it, but I think most of the movement has kind of shifted from the comprehensive immigration reform to try to expand DACA to include parents and people who are over the age of 30, because comprehensive immigration reform isn't moving forward as we would like. So those are just kind of some of the things that are happening right now, and some of the things that happened in the past that I guess have created a path for us to do this now.
Yeah, so en términos de activismo y movimientos estudiantiles, la ley AB 540 en el 2001 que pasó por medio de California, provee a estudiantes que tienen a la preparatoria por 3 años, están en buen lugar para ir al colegio o en buen estatus moral y otras calificaciones, pueden acceder básicamente pueden pagar colegiatura del Estado en comparación a colegiatura si fueran estudiantes internacionales. También tenemos la ley Federal Dreamer, que desafortunadamente no ha pasado. En el 2010 fue la última vez que fue propuesta y fue básicamente no se pudo proponer como una ley. Y después tuvimos California Dreamer, que es la ley que sucedió en el 2011, que proveyó a estudiantes indocumentados que puedan acceder a ayuda financiera al nivel del colegio, pero también a acceder a becas privadas en el nivel como institucional. También DACA básicamente se provee un permiso para estudiantes que puedan trabajar, también que puedan en California al menos conseguir una licencia para manejar. En términos de migración, en una mirada más grande por decir, IRCA fue una de las primeras leyes que fue propuesta en 1986 y proveyó una manera a personas que pudieran legalizarse y naturalizarse. CIR es una ley que ha sido propuesta y que últimamente ha sido de gran valor, por decir, en la población inmigrante, pero desafortunadamente no se ha hecho una realidad. Y el movimiento estudiantil y también de trabajadores se han movido a tal vez implementar algo parecido a DACA, pero a nivel nacional, que haga parte de un encompass más grande en el que estudiantes y padres y miembros de la comunidad se puedan acceder a un permiso para trabajar y posiblemente una licencia. En términos de estadísticas, en términos de estadísticas, actualmente hay 11.7 millones de personas indocumentadas en Estados Unidos. Esto compone de diferentes comunidades latinas, asiáticas, y entonces hay una gran población en Estados Unidos que es indocumentada, ¿verdad? De esta población hay un quinto que es de 1 punto de generación, y esto lo que significa es básicamente que un quinto de esta población, que es aproximadamente 2.3 millones de personas, son de una generación más pequeña. Son personas que vinieron aquí a los Estados Unidos a una edad como de 5 años en adelante, y han vivido desde ese momento en los Estados Unidos. Y de esta población, 1 en 5 coreanos son indocumentados. Esta es información del Instituto de Pew Research Institute. Y esta información de aquí abajo es de estadísticas de personas que acceden a la ley AB 540 al nivel de UC. Específicamente aquí en UCLA, nuestros números representan la población. En la actualidad, 68% son documentados de las personas que acceden a AB 540. 60%, 68% son documentadas, ¿verdad? Al nivel de estudios no gratuitos, pero de maestría o bachillerato, de doctorado, disculpe, son también documentados. Podemos mirar que la mayoría de gente que accede a AB540 en verdad son personas que tienen documentos de una forma u otra. Yo diría que la minoría, 42%, son las personas que no tienen documentación, son estudiantes que son indocumentados. Currently there's 11.7 million undocumented students, undocumented immigrants in the U.S. This comes from different backgrounds, both ethnic and cultural. We're talking about Latinos, we're also talking about Asians and other communities. Out of this population, 1/5 are 1.5 generation, which means that these are 2.3 million, approximately 2.3 million undocumented immigrants who came here at a very young age and have lived in the U.S. since. So we're talking about 2.3 million, so just think about how big that population really is, right? And out of this population as well, 1 out of 5 Koreans are undocumented, right? So it's not just a Latino issue, it's obviously more encompassing of other cultures and other ethnic groups. There's also a great majority of undocumented, non-undocumented or documented students who access Assembly Bill 540. Here you can see we have 68% at the UC level, and then 98% at the graduate level, right? So graduate level students who are actually accessing AB 540. So we again see that this is not just a documented accessibility issue, with AB 540, a lot of the recipients are actually documented, right? And there's a 42% who are undocumented. So we're actually a minority within the larger scope of, qualifying for AB 540.
Okay, so this workshop is about the undocumented identity, and I wanted to cover the difference between embracing the undocumented identity and internalizing the undocumented identity. I think a lot of the media portrays, undocumented communities as criminals. They use the word illegal. There's a lot of negative connotation with being undocumented, and a lot of people, especially if you're taught like I was to be quiet about being undocumented, sometimes you're not aware of the other things that are happening. You only hear these negative things about being undocumented. So sometimes people can internalize being undocumented and internalize those negative feelings and those negative connotations about being undocumented. So, maybe not even applying to college because you say, I can't even apply, I can't afford it, or they're asking me for Social Security, or just, not being able to access the resources that you do have, even if you are undocumented. And this workshop is about embracing the undocumented identity. He's going to talk after about intersectionalities, aside from being undocumented. But I think being undocumented is a part of you, but it doesn't define who you are. So not just because I'm undocumented, I have all these limitations, and that defines who I am, because I'm also all these other things. I'm a student, I'm a worker, I'm a daughter, I'm all these other things. I'm not just undocumented. It doesn't define who I am. So being able to embrace that part of you or whoever that is undocumented, and not only seeing the negative, because the negative is mostly just portrayed by the media in order to oppress these communities, and if you're internalizing it, they're succeeding. So make sure that it doesn't hold you back. It should encourage you to do better and to prove them wrong, right?
So en términos de la identidad de una persona indocumentada, hay mucho que podemos cubrir, pero en términos de esta presentación queremos cubrir el punto de que hay una diferencia en básicamente sentirte como que eres una persona indocumentada y que no hay recursos, no hay nada para ti, en comparación a ser una persona indocumentada que se siente el apoyo de la comunidad, siente la capacidad de poder lograr algo y avanzar, ya que hay mucho apoyo para la población indocumentada. Y entonces queremos básicamente dirigir esa diferencia de que hay una diferencia en ser indocumentado y estar con ese poder de querer hacer algo más, y ser una persona indocumentada que se siente como la víctima y siente que no hay recursos para esa persona. Algo que es muy importante apuntar es de que hay espacios que en verdad han proveído a personas indocumentadas para que puedan ser involucrados en activismo o en términos de política para poder cambiar cómo se mira migración en los Estados Unidos. Ciertos espacios incluyen como United We Dream. ¿Cuántos de ustedes han escuchado de United We Dream? Yeah. So, esta es una organización que se ha establecido por medio de todos los Estados Unidos, y es una de las organizaciones que está básicamente dando el camino y básicamente pero está básicamente abriendo camino para otras personas indocumentadas, ya sean padres, hijos, estudiantes o miembros de la comunidad. Otro de esos grupos también es como Circle Project y Identity Circle. Esos son grupos donde los estudiantes y personas indocumentadas pueden hablar de su estatus, ¿verdad? Hablar de sus diferentes identidades, ya sean trabajadores o sean estudiantes. Pueden venir a estos círculos y apoyarse a sí mismos en un nivel emocional, psicológico y posiblemente afuera de la comunidad indocumentada. También Dream Activism es otra organización que se ha creado nacionalmente. Empezó como un grupo pequeño, pero en verdad ha crecido, y también ellos proveen muchos servicios. A veces tienen como becas, tienen servicios a la comunidad como para Deferred Action. En verdad han proveído muchos servicios que la población indocumentada ha podido tomar como uno de sus recursos más grandes y abrir camino a otras personas indocumentadas. Algo que también queremos apuntar es de que al pensar de indocumentado, sabemos que toma una gran parte de nuestra identidad, ¿verdad? Como si nos identificamos como indocumentados, decimos, oh, soy indocumentado, no tengo papeles, no puedo hacer eso. Nosotros entendemos eso, nosotros hemos vivido eso, venimos de esa cultura. Y creo que parte de eso es identificar qué es lo que nos está parando y qué es lo que podemos hacer para seguir luchando, para abrir camino para otras personas. Entonces lo que queremos decir es de que hay personas indocumentadas, pero que eso no define quiénes son ellos, ¿verdad? So, tal vez digan, oh, I'm undocumented, soy indocumentado, pero no significa que nada más son indocumentados. ¿Me entiendes? Como todos ustedes son más que, no sé, estudiantes, más que miembros de la comunidad, son mucho más que eso. Entonces queremos mirar qué es la interseccionalidad que existe en la identidad. Y eso es lo que viene a nuestro siguiente punto, interseccionalidad. So, interseccionalidad, ¿verdad? Hablando de diferentes culturas, diferentes partes de nuestras identidades que vienen a ser lo que somos ahora, ¿verdad? Como tal vez yo diga, oh, yo soy estudiante, pero el día de mañana tengo que ir a dar una presentación. Entonces, en ese soy un presentador. Y tal vez también tengo que proveer para mi familia, soy un trabajador. Entonces, tengo diferentes identidades que aportan a mi bienestar, pero aportan también a abrir el camino para otras personas que se encuentran en esas identidades. En términos de personas indocumentadas, hay personas que son LGBTQ, son diferentes géneros sexuales, también personas que no tienen hogar, no tienen hogar, y entonces también personas que sus padres han fallecido o que tal vez tienen que atender una escuela donde no tienen un guardián, su foster, y también tenemos personas indocumentadas que son padres, ¿verdad? Muchos de los padres indocumentados ahora en día ya están alzándose y diciendo, basta ya, ¿verdad? Somos indocumentados, pero queremos algo para nuestros hijos, nuestras hijas y para nosotros mismos. Y eso es algo que estamos mirando en el movimiento, que hay más personas de diferentes edades, diferentes grupos étnicos, que se están levantando para decir, basta ya con toda esta injusticia. También tenemos que identificar que en los medios sociales y medios de comunicación hay muchas veces esta idea de que el estudiante indocumentado tiene los grados perfectos, es de 4.0, ¿verdad? Pero la realidad es de que muchos de los estudiantes y muchas personas indocumentadas no caen en esta etapa, por decir, en este nombre de valedictorian, ¿verdad? De un estudiante que fue perfecto. Porque la realidad es de que nuestra población, nuestra comunidad ha sido represionada de muchas maneras. Y a veces hasta el punto de que no podemos acceder a educación, ¿verdad? Entonces es algo que tenemos que reconocer, de que venimos a los Estados Unidos a hacer una mejor vida y tal vez no nos dieron la oportunidad de estar en la educación. Entonces tenemos que reconocer que más que el 4.0 GPA student, hay un estudiante que no llegó al colegio, que tal vez terminó en la cárcel, tal vez está en una pandilla, ¿verdad? Entonces, ¿qué podemos hacer nosotros que tenemos el privilegio de estar aquí para diseminar esta información para que ojalá otros latinos, otros estudiantes asiáticos, otros estudiantes de otras culturas puedan acceder a estos servicios?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm losing track. Okay, intersectionality. So talking about intersectionality, right? So we're people of different colors, different backgrounds, different everything, right? You can't compare me to Angelica, right? I mean, she's cool and I would want to be cool, but you never compare to her, right? And I think that's something that we need to identify within undocumented students and undocumented people in general. They come from different places, different walks of life. We have LGBTQ, right? Sexual orientation plays a big role in our communities. Sometimes it's stigmatized, but the fact that we can say, hey, I'm gay, I'm queer, that's empowering. I think we should, cherish that in our community. Also, we have foster youth or foster recipients, right? Who sometimes fall into the cracks. They lose a parent, they lose a guardian, and they end up in foster care, which some of us might know is not a very effective system, at least here in the U.S. Homeless people, homeless students, homeless youth. These are folks who, again, have been left out of the system, have been pushed out. Maybe they have a family member who was deported. They become independent. They don't have money to pay for the rent. They become homeless. There's actually a big proportion of homeless youth in California, specifically in LA. Also parents, right? We have undocumented parents. Like, what are some of your parents, maybe who are undocumented, thinking about you and thinking about themselves? How do they want to pursue something higher, right? Do they want their son or daughter to be working a 9 to 8 hour shift every day, not having the opportunity to even go out. Like that's a reality that we have to acknowledge. Another thing that we also have to acknowledge is that we have to demystify the undocumented student achievement gap, right? Undocumented students are in media, in particular social media, and even communication, I guess, and news, I would say, are seen as these valedictorians, very high achieving students. But the reality is that most of the undocumented student population doesn't fall into this category. There's actually a big proportion who are non-valedictorians, who are dropout students, who end up in gangs, right? And when they do drop in gangs, these are perceived as stereotypes. These are used in media to portray the negativity of our communities, as opposed to seeing like, how can we best address these issues through education, right? How can you be activists within your communities? Take this information that you're receiving here today and hopefully avoid one of your members, maybe one of your family members, maybe a community member, someone you know, a friend, right, from joining a gang or maybe dropping out of school, right? Oh yeah. So you can see there's a lot of pictures here. There are different activists throughout the U.S. Many of them come from different backgrounds. We have students who identify as LGBTQ, right? They're coming in a double closet, right? We're talking about coming out as LGBTQ, but also coming out as undocumented. And think about what that means also with parents, right? Like, what if you had to come out to your parent like, hey, I'm LGBTQ? But what about coming to a counselor and saying, I'm LGBTQ, and by the way, I'm also undocumented? You know what would that really mean? Also, we have folks who are coming from places of, where there's a lot of hate, there's a lot of crime. For Queerness Immigration Resource Center, they do amazing work. We also have San Francisco. There is a big need for activists there, given that there is a big population of undocumented people in San Francisco. And here we see these folks who are in solidarity, chanting, but they're also in what we see in the background as a bus, right? Some of these buses serve as ICE pickup, I guess, vehicles, where they just stop maybe at where they perceive there are undocumented people and they pick them up, right? And it's a sad reality. Some parents get lost in this system of oppression, right? They get picked up at work, they don't get to make that call to their loved ones. Here we also have Asian American or Asian undocumented students. Aspire in particular, they're leading the work within Asian communities here in LA and in San Francisco as well. So here we see one of the students, I forget his name, he was a big proponent of expanding DACA at a national level. He actually called out President Obama, which is pretty cool. Was it him? That's not him. That's not him. Oh, okay. All right. You see, you're calling me out. That's me. Be like her. So, en términos de diferente activismo, ¿verdad? Tenemos interseccionalidad, como estábamos hablando previamente. En esta foto tenemos estudiantes que se identifican en género LGBTQ, su diferente género sexual. También tenemos personas en diferentes partes del país, ¿verdad?, que están haciendo este tipo de activismo y ya pueden venir como de otros géneros, de otras culturas. Como esta persona, I mean, she might identify as white, but she's doing the work that needs to be done regardless of race, regardless of gender. Estos estudiantes, estaba hablando en español.
It's okay, you're doing great. It's hard to do that.
O sea, esta persona se identifica como blanca, pero está haciendo el trabajo que se necesita hacer para personas que tal vez no son blancas, para personas que son hispanas, latinas, asiáticas, ¿verdad? Porque reconocen que el labor de personas indocumentadas no nada más es de una raza, ¿verdad? No es de una cultura en particular. Aquí miramos estudiantes en San Francisco, donde miramos estos estudiantes y miembros de la comunidad en solidaridad. Que están cantando, ¿verdad? Pero al mismo tiempo miramos aquí que están enfrente de un autobús que a veces sirve para deportar a gente, ¿verdad? Y eso es desafortunado porque muchas de esas buses a veces recogen a miembros de la comunidad, padres, madres, que vienen de trabajo y desafortunadamente los llegan a parar y son deportados. Y entonces nos vamos a pensar, ¿qué es el efecto de la deportación? Los hijos, los miembros de la familia que son afectados más. Aquí tenemos un estudiante que es del grupo Aspire. Ellos están haciendo mucho del trabajo que se requiere para básicamente levantar como ese mensaje de que no solo es un un problema latino, sino también un problema de diferentes culturas, asiático y de Europa también. Entonces ellos están haciendo mucho ese trabajo de educar y hacer activismo alrededor de la comunidad asiática.
Okay, so now we want to go into a piece where we want to hear all of you. Just another reminder, this is a safe space, and for those of you who came in late, we are live streaming this workshop. So the camera is on the PowerPoint, and your faces won't be on the video, but your voices will. So it's up to you if you want to share or if you don't want to share. But keep in mind that these stories might help someone who's looking at this video somewhere else through the internet.
So, queremos recordarles que estamos en una sesión donde se está siendo grabado, no grabado visualmente, pero más en sus voces van a ser grabadas, pero ustedes tienen la opción de no participar en caso de que no se sientan a salvo o sientan que no quieren participar, está bien, pero queremos darles a conocer de que tal vez sus historias o lo que compartan con nosotros puede ayudar a alguien que está mirando esto vía la internet, ¿verdad? Como tal vez hay personas que no pudieron estar aquí ahora, pero quisieran conocer de qué es lo que está haciendo con personas indocumentadas. Y servicios, recursos que ustedes pueden contribuir se van a ser apreciados, pero si no se sienten cómodos, no tienen que compartir.
Okay, so what we're asking you to share is the second part of this workshop is about responding to the anti-immigrant sentiment. And so there's a lot of people, in support of immigration laws. They're in support of Dreamers. They want to see a change, but there's also people who, they might not really know someone who's undocumented, or they just might not be aware of the laws, or they have really strong feelings against any form of immigration laws, or a group of people, undocumented communities. So what we would want to hear is maybe experiences that you have had, encounters with people who, might, and it could be anything from like just saying a word. There's a wide range of how someone can share their anti-immigrant opinions or sentiment against that. So,
en este segmento de la taller quisiéramos básicamente invitarlos a compartir tal vez historias personales o cosas que han escuchado, cosas que han mirado en términos de agresión contra personas indocumentadas, ya sea como un comentario que alguien hizo, tal vez fueron a la marqueta o fueron a la tienda y alguien dijo, oh, todos los indocumentados son latinos. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que pensó usted en ese momento? O cómo actuó, o si miró que alguien actuó, o tal vez trató de responder a ese comentario, para que podamos aprender tal vez en términos de cómo combatir este sentimiento hacia hacia personas indocumentadas. Sure. Okay, so I'll start, I guess, just so that you know, like, I'm a human, obviously we're all humans here, and or at least I would hope so. Or, you might identify as something else, that's cool. But I do believe in this theory and this concept of vulnerability, right? When you make yourself vulnerable, you allow for other people to see you at maybe your weakest point, Maybe you broke down one day and you just cried your eyes out. But that moment, you realize that there was something that really hurt you. And when you let people see that, you might feel a little bit hesitant because it's something very deep and very personal. But you would be surprised. People learn from those experiences. People learn that you are human and you have obstacles, but you also have triumphs, right? You overcome those obstacles by connecting back to those previous obstacles, right? Like you think about them and you're like, what did they do that time that didn't work? But I'm going to try something different. And sometimes it's even about emotional distress. Sometimes we have all these feelings internalized, like, oh my God, I'm LGBTQ, oh my God, I'm undocumented, oh my God, I can't go to college. And then you talk to someone and it just, everything releases, right? There's some sort of chemical, some sort of emotional, some sort of emotional healing that happens. And that's what I want to do by making myself vulnerable, in the sense that I have also been oppressed. I've been harassed. When I was actually in elementary, This is when I came. I arrived here when I was 8 years old. I went to an elementary in the San Fernando Valley, and I think it's just the fact that you look Latino, I guess, and that you dress a certain way, and you don't speak the language, right? And what does that really mean? Like sometimes there's almost like an idea of what American looks like, right? Like what is American look like? And I guess I didn't fit that model, that picture, and so I was targeted, right? Some of my classmates made fun of me. Some of my classmates threw things at me. Some of my classmates attacked me, like physically and verbally. And I think realizing then realizing now what that means, like how other young kids, like we have kids here today who are at that age, who if you push them, if you do anything to them, that causes so much stress in their life. You know, over the years they're gonna think, man, like I'm not accepted. Man, I'm not good enough. You know, like everything comes down on them, and who is there to support them? Right? Who is there to tell them, no, you're great, you're gonna do something in your life, and you're gonna be awesome. Like no one is there to tell them. And think about foster youth, right? People who don't have parents or guardians. Who is there to tell them they're awesome, right? And I feel for me, like being undocumented at that stage, I didn't know how big of a deal that was. You know, I didn't know. I just thought maybe I'm not cool enough. Maybe I don't have those nice Skechers shoes that everyone's carrying. You know, like, why can't I get those Skechers, right? But now I think about it, and I'm like, this is a racial issue. This is a microaggression that's happening on their wings. And what do, right? Do we just sit there? Do we address it, or do we just, you know, say it as a man? Oh, it happened, but nothing happened. You know, like we need to address it, right? And we need to address it here. Like, how are you playing a role in that, right? And I think for me, when I think back, like the way I'm playing a role in that is by going back to my community, teaching like youth, like how do you address these things, right? How do you try to engage undocumented students into curriculum per se, into activism, right? Because there's youth out there who don't get to sit in these classrooms, who don't get to see these presentations, and who will probably never see the light of day because they're in jail. And I think for me, that's really personal, and I don't know, I would hate someone else go through my experience of being attacked, being harassed, being made fun of, for someone who they are, you know, for someone who they love, for a culture that they love.
Okay, so we're gonna open it up. Does anybody want to share any of their experiences?
It doesn't have to be like a full-on experience.
I saw Henry.
It could just be like a comment. Maybe you were in the bus and someone said like, undocumented, they're all Mexicans, you know, like, and you might be like, whoa, like, what did you just say? Or how did you react?
Well, my experience was pretty recent. I mean, all my life, I feel like I've been oppressed, but there's just like some days I just all just comes. And so a couple of weeks ago, I was interviewed by the Santa Cruz Sentinel, which is like the city of Santa Cruz newspaper, because I was doing an event about undocumented students, and they were interviewing me about that. And so I told a little bit about my story. As an undocumented student coming to this country, you know, I'm 2 years old, and my journey from community college to UCSC now, and what I'm doing now, what I'm studying and whatnot. And a few days went by. This story went out on Monday. I saw it on Tuesday, and then a couple days went by, and you know, I was getting good feedback from my friends in the community. And then one day I decided to just look at the comments. You know how this was online as well. So on the online one, you know how people comment under it. And that was the biggest mistake for me to do, because it just made me like cry so much. Because people were saying horrible things. And they were misquoting me too, because at the end, oh yes, right there. Thank you, Angie. At the end of the actual article, I put that something needs to change. And then someone says, oh yeah, something doesn't need to change. All these undocumented people have to be deported. And I was like, that's not what I meant, you know? Or they were saying that I was taking the space of other citizens, you know, that I didn't deserve to be where I was because there's other citizens being in the line, you know, that are in the wait list or whatever to get to UC and whatnot. And I felt bad because, you know, all my life I've been like trying to like fight for my right for higher education, you know, and they don't know how much I have fought to be there. And so I let it get to me, which was a mistake. But I did talk to a lot of my mentors, a lot of my friends who were like, no, they don't know you, they don't know what you've been through. Like, don't let them get to you. Like, that, you know, they're just following the racist laws of this country. you know, like they're just being racist, basically. Well, no, you're right. Like, they don't know what I did to get here, and I deserve to be here. So in a sense, it did like hurt my heart, but it also empowered me in the end.
Yeah, so in this story, we see a lot of the things that we talked about, but also new things, right? Like how there's empowerment in sharing, there's empowerment in social media. Like that's what we're seeing nowadays. Actually, I'm currently doing research in undocumented, non-Latino, and Latino students as well, and that's something that we're seeing more and more. Undocumented individuals are becoming empowered by social media, by allowing themselves to tell these stories that no one is telling them for them. Right? And there should be no reason for anyone to be telling their story because that is an undocumented story that they're bringing to the field. So thank you for sharing.
Okay, we wanted to hear more about you, but we're running kind of short on time. But we just wanted to give you some tools I mean, there's no one way to deal with any situation at all. Even though I've been in the movement for 5 years, even if something happens to me, I might like don't know what to say back, you know. And it's happened, especially when it involves the law. But you know, there's always that thing that happens. But as long as you're prepared with what your beliefs are and what's really going on, like current events, then you know you'll feel a lot better. So we just wanted to talk about myths. So it is an idea or a story that is believed by many people, but it's not true. A lot of the myths that we hear out there is like that we hear over and over is that undocumented immigrants don't pay taxes. You know, my parents have been paying taxes since we got here. You know, it's been 17 years. I'm not really sure where this myth comes from, but I have the facts, right? They also say they steal our jobs. I mean, there's been a lot of interviews that say, you know, would you do this job? Most people would not do this job. So we just have to be able to understand where are these myths and where are these comments coming from, and knowing what are the real facts. Because now, like, if someone says, you know, undocumented people don't pay taxes, I can say, my parents pay taxes, I pay taxes when I work, you know. I know a lot of people who do pay taxes, and you can pay taxes because all you need is an ITIN number. You don't need a social security number to pay taxes. And then another thing that we wanted to address is microaggression. Microaggressions happen every day. This is just kind of one definition that we have. Racial microaggressions are beliefs or commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights and insults towards people of color. And this is a racial microaggression, but it could be gender, it could be sexuality, it could be, you know, language, class, ability. You know, that's one of the things that we don't think of when people are disabled. We don't consider that, but I think it's important to understand that we do have intersectionalities, but we also have, you know, these different responsibilities within each identity. And saying things like, he brought up the point that, you know, asking someone, like, where are you from? And then, like, I would say, I'm from San Jose, right? And then they're like, no, where are you really from? It's like, it's something that it sounds really basic, but it's like, they already have this preconceived notion of, like, because I'm brown or because maybe my name's ethnic, I don't know, that they assume that, you know, I have somewhere else that I'm from, right? I'm not from San Jose. Or, you know, as basic as, we hear this a lot, hey guys, you know, we live in this very male-dominant society, and hey guys is something that is so common and so slight, but it feeds into it. I mean, in the long run, it really does. And, you know, being inclusive is really important, saying, hey, everyone, hey, peeps, I don't know, y'all. And it's really hard, and I do it sometimes too, but it's important to understand because, you know, hey guys is something so simple, but if I were to say, you know, if I just all of a sudden started talking Spanish, like, I'm excluding people who don't speak Spanish, or I'm excluding people who are girls in here, or, you know. So those are just some of the things. And like I said, being educated and taking a stand on the issue. So not just being educated on both sides, but also taking a stand, because A lot of the times when I work with people, I have a stance. So obviously I'm pro-immigration, like, and I want these laws to pass. And I have conversations with people who might not see that way. And, we have this conversation, like, I present them with my points, they present me with their points, and we're both educating each other. But at the end of the day, I'm not trying to change their minds. I mean, I would hope that they would support, immigration laws and progressive laws, but it's not up to me to change their minds. It's up to me to educate them on both sides. And I think that's really important to understand when you're talking to someone. You're not trying to change their mind. You're not going to get anywhere because you're both trying to do the same thing. It's presenting your points and letting them walk away with what they understand and what they've made up with their mind.
En términos de diferentes recursos que quisiéramos ofrecer, básicamente entender que hay ciertas ideas que son creadas, ¿verdad?, por la sociedad, por medios de internet, por medios de comunicación, que se le llama en inglés myths. Son historias o mitos, como leyendas en términos, como es una idea o historia que es creada por, como es creída por mucha gente y que no necesariamente es verdad. En términos de estudiantes indocumentados, a veces pensamos como, personas indocumentadas no pagan sus taxes, o están tomando el lugar de un estudiante que son ciudadanos. Entonces, la realidad de eso es de que muchas personas indocumentadas sí pagan sus taxes y que están contribuyendo a la comunidad de unas maneras positivas y educativas, ¿verdad? También tenemos esta idea de microaggressions en términos de básicamente atacar a alguien por medio de un comentario, ya sea como intencional o no intencional. A veces hacemos comentarios como que, como si alguien te pregunta, ¿de dónde eres? Y yo digo, yo soy de San Fernando, y me preguntan, no, pero en verdad, ¿de dónde eres? Porque you're brown, eres moreno, y eres mexicano. Yo me pongo a pensar como, ¿qué es lo que causa a la persona que me está haciendo la pregunta que piense que soy de otro lugar, o que tal vez que no soy de los Estados Unidos? O a veces como mi compañera, entre nuestros compañeros o compañeras a veces decimos, hey guys, ¿cómo están muchachos? Y en verdad, a veces este término no aplica, ¿verdad? Porque todos en el cuarto no son muchachos. A veces es una mezcla de muchachos y muchachas, ¿verdad? Entonces tenemos que estar constantemente pensando de que qué comentarios hacemos que tal vez puedan agredir a alguien en maneras que no nos damos cuenta, ¿verdad? En términos de raza, en términos de clase, en términos de género sexual, también en términos de disabilidad, ¿verdad? Hay personas que están en silla de ruedas y a veces asumimos como que pueden hacer las mismas cosas, o tal vez asumimos de que, tal vez puede estar en línea y no se va a cansar. Tal vez esa persona se va a cansar, pero nosotros hacemos una asumimos ciertas cosas que en verdad no son verdad. Gracias. Entonces tenemos que estar conscientes de que nuestros comentarios pueden afectar a alguien, pueden insultar a alguien sin nosotros darnos cuenta. Y eso creo que es algo muy importante en términos de personas indocumentadas, ¿verdad? Porque a veces nosotros mismos empezamos a usar esos comentarios con nuestros colegas, con nuestras parejas, con nuestros amigos, ¿verdad? Empezamos a atacar a nuestras propias comunidades sin darnos cuenta que esos comentarios pueden llevar consecuencias más allá de las que nosotros entendemos. En términos de también activismo, ¿verdad? A veces pensamos como de activismo en ciertas personas que son como estudiantes o que trabajan en la política o que son educadores, pero no necesariamente. A veces nos podemos hacer activistas sin necesariamente estar en la política, necesariamente estar en educación, necesariamente estar en una institución de educación, ¿verdad? Entonces podemos actuar de esa manera, ya sea que vamos en el autobús, tal vez hace alguien un comentario sobre personas indocumentadas, y en ese instante tal vez podemos decirles, ¿sabes qué? Escuché en la radio o leí un papel que hablaba de eso, y en verdad la comunidad indocumentada no es latina, o es latina, pero hay una proporción que es asiática. Entonces podemos educar a la comunidad con esos comentarios pequeños. Tal vez a veces uno está un poco tímido de hacer esos comentarios porque dice, esa persona no me va a entender, o esa persona no me va a escuchar. Pero creo que la realidad es de que ese miedo es el mismo miedo que nos va a llevar a no poder alcanzar algo más allá y abrir caminos a otras personas indocumentadas. Yo de corazón les pediría a ustedes que si tienen esa oportunidad, que se avienten, por decir, que tengan ese coraje, ese entusiasmo de educar a alguien más, ¿verdad? Educar a alguien que tal vez no conoce de personas indocumentadas, no conoce de la interseccionalidad que existe en esta comunidad. Y tal vez cambiar la manera en que ellos conocen el tema, ¿verdad? Tal vez no los cambies completamente en su manera de pensar, pero los educas de qué es las consecuencias de que lleva su actuar y que lleva sus comentarios de esa persona, ¿verdad? That's about it. Ahora, si tienen preguntas o algo, los invito a preguntar. If you all have questions, we definitely invite you to ask them now or approach us at a later point. We did bring resources for youth. There are resources for educators as well, so definitely take these. I'll pass them out.
Does anybody have any questions? ¿Alguien tiene preguntas?
Pass it this way.